Well, happy winter's day. It actually is winter out right now. People are sick and it's cold and it feels like midwinter. All right. So with that said, hey, if you weren't here with us last week, we started our new sermon series. It's called Brain Teasers. And what we're doing in this series is we're just walking through several of the parables of Jesus. And if you're not aware what a parable is, real quick, is they were just simple stories that Jesus used to kind of illustrate a moral or a spiritual lesson. So he would tell stories that everybody could relate to in real world circumstances, and then there would be a spiritual implication behind that he was trying to teach you. So he wasn't straightforward in it. He would tell you a story, and then you actually had to think it through, all right? And so what happens at one point, we covered this last week a little bit, but I want to reintro this. The disciples at one point started questioning Jesus, like, why are you constantly telling these stories, these parables, instead of just being totally direct and transparent to everybody? And they kind of go, why are you doing that? And this is his response in Matthew 13:12. He says, that those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given, and they will have an abundance of knowledge. But those who are not listening, even what little understanding they have will be taken away from them. So he makes the key here about listening, that it's people that's listening, and he's kind of dividing the group into two different audiences. So you got to understand, in Jesus' day, he has hundreds, if not thousands, of people showing up wherever he is, listening and wanting to listen to his teachings and all. So he's kind of using these parables to divide the groups at this point into two different groups. The first group are those that are truly committed to the kingdom of God and understanding the things of the kingdom. Second group are the people who are just there for a show or for their own personal reasons, but they're not there to actually be instructed. They're not there to find truth. They're just there for other reasons. And he's kind of, at this point in his ministry, starts talking in parables to divide them out, probably to get some of them to walk away so he can shrink the crowd some and have the people who really want to learn there with them. And then there were some other issues with the Pharisees and stuff like that, where he was hiding some things so that he could preach a little bit longer before they really wanted to kill him and have him dead. So there's a dual thing going on, but he wanted to divide these guys into two different groups, this audience into two groups. Now, with these parables, it does require listening, okay? And you see that in his response here. You can't just hear them and move on. When you look at the parables, you have to listen, which means you have to actively think through what you're hearing and discover the truth to them. So that's why we have called this series Brain Teasers, is that they're just like brain teasers, which is you read a brain teaser and you're kind of going, what is that talking about, all right? And so what we're doing each week is we're going to start off with two just brain teasers to kind of get your brains working and thinking. And so last week I gave you two, and here's the two this week. So I'm going to put one of them up here in a second. We will read it together. I'm going to give you like 15 to 20 seconds to see if you can determine what the answer is. Now, you're not telling someone else what the answer is. You keep this to yourself because we need to see what group you're in that Jesus would have had. If you're a good Christian or you're a bad Christian, we're going to figure that out right now. All right? Now, so here we go. The first one is this. In 1990, a person is 15 years old. In 1995, that same, and I capitalized so you don't know there's nothing fishy happening here, that same person is 10. How can that be? Okay? You don't say it out loud. Who said that? Who was it? Annie. Shh. Okay? This is to yourself. Figure it out. You got 15 seconds. If you can figure out what the answer to this is. 1990, a person is 15. In 1995, that same person is now 10. How can that be? I could do the Jeopardy. I give you a few seconds to think. All right. Here we go. Does anyone think they have it? Nobody. This is why Jesus did this stuff, so they can be like, you guys just go home. I'm not teaching you anything anyways. Okay, here's the answer. I didn't get this one when I did it either. The answer is this. The person was born in 2005 BC. So in BC, in 1995, they would have been 10 years old. In 1990, they would have been 15 years old, because in BC, you're counting backwards. Got it? Okay. Does everybody understand that? That's brain teasers, because you have to think these things through. You got to think outside the box, but they were born in 2005 BC, which would make that totally understandable. Now, here's the second one. It is this. Your parents have 6 sons, including you. And each son has 1 sister. How many people are in this family? Do not say it out loud. Count up how many people are in this family. So Your parents have 6 sons, including you. Each son has 1 sister. How many people are in the family? So get in your head. Sonia, if you're using a calculator over there, you cannot use a calculator. All right. Hold on. Here we go. All right. If you got, hold on. 6, 12. If you have 14, raise your hand. All right. If you have 9, raise your hand. Oh, quite a few of you got that one. All right. So the true answer is 9. You have mom and dad, which is 2. You have 6 sons. That's 8. Each son has 1 sister. That means there's just 1 sister in the family because each of the sons has 1 sister. There's not 6 sisters. There's 1 sister. That then puts you at 9, and now you have your answer. There you go. So that is brain teasers. You have to think outside the box. You got to think a little deeper. That is what Jesus is doing here with these parables. They're very much like this, as he's talking to an audience, and if you didn't think about it, you're just kind of going, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I don't even get the point. And you're going, I'm going to get bored with them, and I'm going home. But if you take time to think about it, you can find what the truth is that he's teaching. Today we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 18. We're going to be looking at what parable is commonly known as the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee. All right? And the way we're doing this, I'm just going to read the whole thing to you to start. And then we're going to go back through line by line, and we're going to kind of dissect what this parable and the understanding of it is. So here's the entire parable. Luke 18, 9 through 14, it reads this. Then Jesus told the story to some who had great confidence in their own righteousness and scorned everyone else. 2 men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, the other was a despised tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed this prayer. I thank you, God, that I'm not like other people, cheaters, sinners, and adulterers. I'm certainly not like that tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I give you 1/10 of my income. But the tax collector stood at a distance, and he dared not even lift his eyes to heaven, and he prayed to heaven and prayed. Instead, he beat his chest in sorrow, saying, O God, be merciful to me, for I am a sinner. I tell you, this sinner, not the Pharisee, returned home justified before God. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. All right? So here's the story Jesus lays out to the crowd. And so now we're going to go through and kind of dissect and go, what was the spiritual implications he was trying to get the people in the crowd to understand? So we start off in verse 9. In verse 9, what we're told is the audience he is aiming this to. So he says this. It says, Then Jesus told this story to some people who had great confidence in their own righteousness and scorned everybody else. So what he's aiming this at, he's aiming at people who are Christians, who are self-righteous. And it's the people who set themselves up as Jesus themselves. Now, understand, his crowd was not only these people, but say he has a crowd like this, and he's going, I know some of you have that mindset, and so I'm going to tell this story because I'm aiming this at you because I want you to hear this. But everyone else is hearing this too and having to figure this out. But he's going to people, I really need to hear this. Those of you that think you're Jesus, those of you that think you are self-righteous, that you are better than everybody else and every other Christian, you need to hear what I'm going to say here, all right? So here's what it says in verse 10. He says, 2 men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee and the other was a despised tax collector. Now, to his target audience here, they would have had instantly a good guy and a bad guy in the story. These are common things they would have seen on a daily basis as people went to the temple in the temple square and they prayed. And if you went there, you saw the Pharisees, and you also saw people that were common people and tax collectors and everything else, usually praying in different areas. And the reason for that is the Pharisee in the story, to his target audience, and to, I would say, everybody in his audience, would have went instantly when you say Pharisee, that's the good guy in the story. All right? And now here's why they would have said that. The Pharisees were incredibly spiritual people based on what you could see. All right? So they made sure you could see their spiritual acts out in front of you. They were flawless in their adherence to the Jewish law, to the law of Moses. They made sure they were flawless in it. So everyone could tell these people, they don't slip up. These are the righteous people. These are the religious people. These are the incredible people. Everything they did spiritually was done for a public show. So everything was done so you would know how spiritual they are. And so they would make sure it was done in public. They were also very looked up to in society because they were seen as the people closest to God, and they would get direct revelation from God. They were praised by the people in the society, but at the same time, people feared them because they knew their political power they had in society as well. So even though they were respected, even though they were praised, people were still like, I don't want to step on their toes, because if I step on their toes, I've seen what they do to people who they run into and they have cross words with, and they destroy them. So people, even though they had a respect and a praise for them, were scared to death of these guys too, these Pharisees. But these Pharisees walked around as if I am God's gift to the world, and if you would just look at me and model my behavior, you would be the individual God wants you to be. You would be perfect like I am. So their entire persona was caught up in this, I'm perfect. And so that's how people viewed them. And so the crowd would go, Pharisee, good guy. The other person in the story, the tax collector. Everybody would have instantly in the crowd, including his target audience, everybody in the crowd would have went, bad guy. So now we have a good guy, now we have a bad guy. The reason is the tax collectors, they were typically Jewish people who were working with the occupying Romans, who were occupying them, and they were making a pretty good living off of taking your taxes. And the way they made their money is Rome might say, you owe us 13% tax. I'm the tax collector, so I have the authority of Rome behind me. I can go get my 13% tax from you, but I need to make a living too, so I'm going to take 20% from everybody. So you're all going to pay me 20%. I'm going to take the 20%. I'm going to give 13% to Rome, and I'm going to keep 7% for myself. And typically they were very wealthy people because they were taking all of your money. And if you said anything about it and go, I think 20% is too much, a tax collector would just go, I have the Roman power behind me, and I can call them in and they will take your money. I can take your house, I can take your family, I can take your kids, I can take your pets, I can take everything you own. So give me my 20% cut, or I call in the soldiers. All right? So they were greatly feared and they were greatly despised in the community. So as Jesus sets this up, he's now set up a good guy and a bad guy right in front of his story to the entire audience. Then in verse 11 he says this, the Pharisee stood by himself and he prayed this prayer. I thank you, God, that I'm not like other people, cheaters, sinners, and adulterers. I'm certainly not like that tax collector. Now again, he's telling a parable, so he's just telling a story, but he's telling a story that everybody would have seen before. So everyone would have been like, I know that guy, I know that Pharisee, because right now when I go to the temple today and pray, I can see all of common people are over here praying, and there's the Pharisee standing by himself, and he's doing his great prayers, and he's saying it out loud, hey, God, thank God I'm not like all of them, and especially not that one, the tax collector, okay? Now, all three things he aims here are personal attacks at tax collectors, though. So he says, I'm not a cheater, which is exactly how tax collectors made their money, so that was a cut against them. He says sinners, that I'm not a sinner. Now, this is more of a general term, meaning people who violate justice, people who go against justice in society, which is exactly who the tax collectors were, because they were ripping all of you off and you had no recourse to say anything about it. So he's going, I'm not a cheater, I'm not a sinner like the tax collector, I'm not an adulterer. And the word adulterer here probably was not referring to someone cheating on their wife, but more in a spiritual sense, which was someone who's turned their back on God and is kind of hooked up with the world. Okay, so when it's saying adulterer here, it's kind of going, someone that's having an affair on God with the world, that they have left their relationship with God and now they are hooking up with the world. They're living like the world. So again, another attack at tax collectors who have left the Jewish people and are now with the Romans and going, hey, I'm palsing around with the Romans. Okay? So three direct attacks against this tax collector and just the common people. Now here's the thing. It is very natural for us as people to take pride in the things we achieve compared to other people. Is that not true? Like, we naturally are this way. Like, we look at things that we have accomplished, we look at what other people have accomplished, and we tend to compare ourselves to that and either feel good about it or feel bad about it. It's kind of just human nature. We live that way because we're results-based people, all right? So this whole comparison thing isn't always a horrible thing, but in this sense is where it becomes horrible. When you take that pride in the things that you have accomplished in comparison to other people, and you carry that into your relationship with God, it becomes a very unhealthy thing in your life. And what it does, it creates two different traits in you. The first one is you start to have a disdain for people. And that's what you see with this Pharisee in the stories. He's going, I'm not like those people. I'm definitely not like the tax collector. And he has like a disdain for other people. So now he's seen people by different classes. He's seen people by different groupings. And he's going, these are the good people. These are the okay people. These are the horrible people. And the way he's determining all that is based on where he sees himself in comparison to all of them. And when you carry that into your relationship with God, it creates a disdain for people. It also prevents you from growing spiritually. So if you carry your spiritual pride into your relationship with God, you don't grow spiritually. It just doesn't happen that way. God does not coexist with your pride. In verse 12, it says this, I fast twice a week, and I give a tenth of my income. So the next thing we see is he starts boasting to God about his deeds. So now you have this Pharisee, when he's going to pray to God, boasting to God about his deeds. The first one he says is, I fast twice a week. Now, why that was a huge one is this. Jews only had to fast one time a year, and that was on the Day of Atonement. So one day a year they would fast, which means you give up food basically to pursue your spiritual journey with God. So you would give up your food and pursue God for that day instead of eating the times that you feel hunger, the times that you would spend time eating and fellowshipping with people, you spend in prayer, okay? So that's typically what fasting is referred to. The Pharisees, on the other hand, every Monday and Thursday of the week would fast. So 2 days a week they would fast. And what they would do is they wore different clothing so you knew they were fasting. So everybody, when they showed up at a temple, knew they were fasting. And you as a common person go, I fast once a year on the Day of Atonement. Huge day for us as Jews. But man, those Pharisees, twice a week they're doing it. So that's like 104 times a year. I do it once. They do 104 times a year. Wow, those are spiritual people. Okay? And so they had built this whole thing. And so the Pharisees taking pride in that and going, hey, God, I just want to remind you, I fast twice a week, man. That's me, because I love you and I'm so committed to you and I'm so good. I fast twice a week. And then he brings up that he gave 10% of everything he received. The NLT here translates that income. That's actually not the right translating of that word. It's literally he's saying everything I receive, I give a tenth of it back to the temple, to God. So everything I go through and I make sure anything I'm given, if someone gives me a gift, if I just receive something in the mail, if whatever, anything that has any value, I'm giving 10% of it to the temple because I'm making sure I'm doing everything perfect and I'm doing everything right so everyone can see that I am perfect. And so he brings those two issues to God in his prayers and goes, hey, God, guess what? I fast twice a week and I give you a tenth of my income. Now, here's the thing. Just like this Pharisee in the story, it's very easy for us as Christians to get caught up in our deeds rather than our spiritual development. And that's what you see here is this Pharisee and the people Jesus is targeting at. He's going, you have found your value with me based on the stuff you're doing, not necessarily on the fact that you're growing spiritually in your relationship with me. And we can all fall in the same trap very easily to go, I focus on my deeds I do for God rather than being focused on my spiritual development with God. Now, the reason for this, the reason I think we get caught in this trap is a couple of things. Number one, deeds are external, okay? Deeds are things that other people can see. They are things that are easy to quantify. So I can look at my deeds and go, I do this. I went to food bank yesterday and I helped feed the poor. Look at good Scott, okay? I taught last Wednesday and I taught little kids in there and Kylie was with me and Miss Autumn was with me. And so we're good. And some of you weren't in there. Some of you weren't teaching the kids on Wednesday. And there's some people serving in the kids area right now. And so deeds are easy to quantify. We do it this way as well. I'm reading my Bible every day and I set it up where I'm reading it 30 minutes a day. So now I can say like, hey, God, I'm committed to you. I'm reading 30 minutes a day and I'm doing this. Deeds are easy to quantify. They're easy to see. They're easy to judge. And they also usually bring us praise from people because they're typically seen by people. So then people can be like, hey, Scott, thanks for helping at food bank yesterday. And you're like, glad you noticed, okay? Hey, thanks for teaching kids on Wednesday night. Yeah, I'm glad you noticed. Okay, so we get praise for that. So it's very seductive for us to start seeing our relationship through our deeds. Here's the hard part of spiritual development. It's almost always internal. Okay? And the results of it don't always show up on the outside right away. So you don't get praise from people, and it's also hard to quantify. And so it's hard to have people look at it and go, yeah, you're growing. And we probably are all in the same thing. Am I growing in my spiritual relationship with God? And there's times you sit there and doubt it and go, I don't know. How do I judge that? How do I know if that's happening? It's just harder to tell. So we naturally drift to focusing on deeds rather than development, okay? Here's the other reason I think it's so seductive is this. When you focus on deeds, guess who's in control? You, right? If I want more deeds, what do? Go do more stuff. If I want you to be more impressed with me, what do? Go do more stuff you can see me doing. So it's very easy for me to receive praise. It's very easy for me to up my game and to go, look, I'm doing more deeds, therefore God's more pleased with me. To grow spiritually, who has to be in charge? Jesus. Okay? To grow spiritually, you have to relent and give over control to Jesus and go, Jesus, I need you in my life, and I need you to transform me and grow me. And so the other reason this is so seductive, we all like being in control. We don't like giving up control. And so therefore we go, it's so much easier to focus on deeds because I can control that. Spiritual development, I got to have Jesus there. And I got to let Jesus transform me. And so we tend to, just like the Pharisees here, get caught up on our deeds. And that's what you're seeing here, that Jesus is going, I want you to see how this guy's mind's working. And you might fall into the same trap. Verse 13, it goes on. So now it shifts to the tax collector. It says, but the tax collector stood at a distance and dared not even lift his eyes to heaven as he prayed. Instead, he beat his chest in sorrow, saying, "O God, be merciful to me, for I am a sinner." Okay? So I want you to get a visual here because Jesus is very detailed on the visual happening here. Most of the time, this is not even how we're having our prayers, okay? He's showing a guy who seems to have a full understanding of where he stands before God, which is, I am unworthy to even be in this temple area right now and praying. Because it says here that he wouldn't even look into heaven, so that means his head is down, and instead he beat his chest in sorrow. So instead of the Pharisee going like this, "Oh God, look how great I am," the Pharisee is doing this. I'm so sorry that I'm even here. I don't know why I'm able to pray to you, but let me pray. And he's beating his chest with his head down, going, I'm in a humble state. I understand I'm unworthy to deserve an audience with you, to have you talk to me, okay? Or for you to even hear the words I have to say. So what we see here is this. This is a different level of humility that the tax collector is displaying in this story. Is this guy is a guy who gets it. He understands. I'm unworthy to be in the presence of God. I'm unworthy for God to even care about me or listen to me or want to interact with me in any way, shape, or form. He's showing a great level of humility. And when you get this in your life, what it does, it changes how you view daily circumstances. It also changes your interactions with people. When you find true humility, true repentance in your life, it will change how you see life, and it will change how you see people. What happens is this. When it comes to life circumstances, you start to realize anything good, and you hear me say this a lot, anything good you experience in life is a blessing from God. Why? Because your humility allows you to understand you deserve nothing good at all. Okay? All you deserve is the wrath of God for who you are and the way you live your life. And so what humility does is it allows you to look at everything in your life that's good, and you start to develop a thankful heart. And instead of being someone who's always talking about how I'm getting robbed and how I'm not getting what I should get and blah, 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 and how poor me, you start to develop the saying, thank you, God, that I got this. Thank you, God, that I woke up this morning. Thank you, God, I got to take a hot shower this morning. Thank you, God, I had heat in my car when I drove to church. And thank you, God, I'm sitting in church right now, and I don't like the temperature, but it's not 24 degrees and windy outside. I'm sitting actually in a place I'm fairly comfortable. And you start to have a thankful heart instead of an entitled heart, okay, when you develop this humility. The other thing it starts to do is instead of comparing yourselves to other people all the time, what happens is you start developing compassion and empathy for others. You start to look at people through a different lens. Instead of how they're worse than me or they're better than me and how I'm envious of them, or how I look at them and go, they're just disasters and I'm so good. You start to develop compassion and empathy for other people and going, I wonder why they are the way they are. And you take it some time to kind of look at that next layer and go, yeah, this might be true that I'm seeing on the outside, but the reason they're showing itself on the outside is because of this stuff that's happening on the inside. And then you start having compassion, you start having empathy for people, and you start to relate to people in different ways than you did before you had humility, okay? So this guy's prayer is showing you a very healthy heart that if you take that heart into your relationship with God, starts to transform you and change how you see the world. The first part of verse 14, it then says this, Jesus now, he says, I tell you, this sinner, not the Pharisee, returned home justified before God. Okay, now I want you to understand this. This was an outrageous statement at the time with his audience, because he just said the good guy in the story, tax collector. Bad guy in the story, Pharisee. Totally opposite of how the entire audience would have seen it going into it. He's now going, it's the tax collector that's actually the good guy, and the Pharisee, that's the bad guy. And this would have enraged that segment of the crowd that he was talking to. This would have been one more reason why they want him dead, why they want him crucified. And when they get the chance to crucify him, they're like cheerleading and going, absolutely, we want him dead. Remember when he told that story and he cut us down and he mocked us and he made us look bad in front of everybody? That's why he needs to die. Okay? They would have been enraged at that point. The lesson Jesus wanted them to get was this, that even the worst of sinners can find instant righteousness simply through the act of repentance. That the worst of sinners can find instant righteousness in God's eyes simply through a humble act of repentance. That even the best-looking Pharisees can be lost simply because of their pride and their arrogance about their deeds prevents them from actually engaging God in any healthy way. And that's what he wanted people to understand. I'm Jesus and you were the audience, he's going, hey, most of you out there need to understand this. God will grant you righteousness if you just come to him with a humble heart. And you repent of who you are and what you've done, you're just humble. God will give you righteousness. He will see you as righteous. But if you come to him with pride in your deeds and arrogance about how you're deserving of his love and all, guess what? Don't count on building a relationship with him, because nothing's going to happen. God doesn't deal in those relationships. God doesn't deal in that world. He deals with the humble. He deals with those that come before him that are repentant. That's who he deals with. And the last part, it says this, and in the second part of verse 14, he wraps it up. He says, for those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Okay? So I just want to kind of simply wrap this up today with a simple question for you to take some time and answer about yourself, which is this. Which attitude in the story honestly defines your interaction with God better? Right now, when you interact with God, and specifically through prayer, does the Pharisee or the tax collector better describe how you go to God? When you go and pray, do you start it off usually talking about all the things about you? And maybe even the good stuff about you and going, God, this is what I've done. God, I did this, I did that, I did this. What I want you to know and what Jesus wants you to know is this. That leads to spiritual death. That doesn't go anywhere. Okay? Or do you go to him humbly? And is your prayer life more of, hey, God, thank you for your son, Jesus. Thanks for dying for me. I know I'm undeserving of it. Thank you for caring about me. Thank you for being willing to listen to me. God, I have some concerns. I have some things on my heart. I'd love to discuss them with you. Here's things going on. I pray that you would lead me. I pray that you would give me wisdom. I pray that you would show me what path to take so I can honor you and bring you praise and glory and build your kingdom. That's a humble, repentant heart. And what we see Jesus saying here is that leads to spiritual growth. That leads to transformation in your life. And so are you the Pharisee or the tax collector? My desire for all of us here this morning is this, to strive to be a humble sinner, okay, rather than an arrogant Pharisee. The goal of your Christian walk is not to get to the point in your life, in your prayer time with God and everything, where you can start looking down on other people and going, the reason that God loves me is because I'm better than the rest of them. If that's your mindset, you got serious spiritual sickness going on, okay? Just like the Pharisee. But you can convince yourself you're the greatest thing ever because you'll get some praise from people, and people will look on the outside of you and go, yeah, you got it all together. But at the core of who you are, it's sick and it's dying. We want to be humble sinners. Here's the thing. If you're like me, even though I'm a Christian, I still mess up regularly. Do you not? I still get the wrong attitude. I get the wrong heart set. I say the wrong things. I do the wrong things. I'm not the person God wants me to be in a lot of situations. And I understand that, and I admit it to God, and I go, God, fix me. Help me get better. And so that's why I call it a humble sinner, which is, yes, I am righteous in God's eyes. My sins are forgiven. All my sins I ever committed and every sin I ever will commit in the future, they are forgiven. Jesus will claim them someday before the throne of God, and I will be forgiven of them. But I also understand as I sit here, I'm still a sinner. And I'm still going to commit sin that Jesus will have to take the punishment for someday. And so I'm a humble sinner who's saved by the grace of God, who knows in God's eyes, I'm righteous. Okay? On the other end, the Pharisees going, no, I'm righteous. God, you know I'm righteous. Look how good I am. Dangerous place. Humble sinner, excellent place to be, a place where God will start to mold and shape and transform you into the person he wants you to be. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father,